any client who is really profitable for you and that you also love working with is probably going to meet the profile for your core customer. So then it's a question of understanding how do you actually characterize what someone like that looks like. Once you can identify that, you can go and start to look for other people that fit those same criteria. And if you crack that code, you can focus all of your marketing, all of your sales, all of your customer service energy resources onto that particular core customer. When I first introduce this notion to the clients that I work with, the reaction I normally get is, well, business is business. We can't turn the money down. We can't turn the revenue down for the others. By the time you've factored in all of the resources involved in winning the deal, delivering the deal, customer service, handling complaints and moans and things like that, they're actually costing you money. So there's a great quote out there. The easiest way to make more money is to stop losing money. If you can get rid of that 10 to 20% of customers who are costing you money, then all of a sudden you'll free up all this resource, all this energy that you can then direct to the customers that really love what you do, your core customers.
Plus, chances are that your P&L is going to go up right there and then, right? Because again, you are eliminating activities that cost you money, that is not actually bringing any profit. So you're looking at, when defining a core customer, really who they are, what type of company they work for, and in what role is part of their description. But really the key is to think about a person and what is it in it for them. What is the pain? What is the need that you are responding to, and why they love you?
Welcome back to CardCast, the podcast where we tackle a gnarly but intriguing topic each episode. So we pick the topic at random. We shuffle the deck of cards and see what pops up. Shall we shuffle the deck?
And we have the core customer card. It's a topic that will be very dear and near to any metronomics coach and any metronomics client, because we are working on that pretty early in the engagement with customers, right?
Absolutely. And there is this belief that that customers are always right. And I passionately disagree with that. And you often have customers that are really, really hard to keep happy. Have you ever experienced that, Mala?
Who hasn't? I think it's probably the question. But what you just said, the question is the right customer always right? That's the question. So let's talk about the right customer. Yeah, I think that everybody ever trying to build a business, in the beginning, you take everything, right? That's
You do.
pretty common. Like anybody who's willing to buy is, as Monty Python would think, every lead is precious, or sacred, right? But the point is that sooner or later, you'll end up with a list of customers, and some of them are just really, really hard to keep happy. And, I think we picked this from Tiffany Boa, right? The whole idea of try to rank the customers by their happiness, whatever research you do, whatever metric you use, it doesn't really matter. Let's say 1 to 7 for sake of argument. And then look at how much effort the company would be spending or the team would be spending to take the unhappy ones, the ones and twos, and try to move them a little bit higher. And how much what the different return on investment or return on effort you get if you try to take the fives, the pretty happy ones, and make them raving fans, move them onto the sevens. So the card is talking about that, right? And about how the return on that investment is not in those 2 steps you get, but in how many of those ideal customers you get that are super happy, because there will be your source of referrals. There will be the one who will give you the best references. And honestly, it's probably the ones that your team will enjoy working with most.
So, I mean, in your card, you talk about this ranking of 1 to 7. I mean, I sort of bring a different dimension into it as well. So I look at which customers are most profitable, not most revenue, but the most profitable. And then I overlay onto that, how much you like working with them. So then you've got two dimensions. Any client who is really profitable for you and that you also love working with, is probably going to meet the profile for your core customer. So then it's a question of understanding, how do you actually characterize what someone like that looks like? How do you say, well, okay, they make us money, profit, and we love working with them. So let's look at that individual, that company, that individual, the person, the people we deal with, and try and understand the characteristics that make them so nice to work with and so profitable. Because once you can identify that, you can go and start to look for other people that fit those same criteria. And if you crack that code, you can focus all of your marketing, all of your sales, all of your customer service energy resources onto that particular core customer. And when I first introduce this notion to the clients that I work with, the reaction I normally get is, well, we've probably only got about 30% of customers like that. But business is business. We can't turn the money down, we can't turn the revenue down for the others. And it takes a while for this notion to sink in. It takes a while for them to say, actually, yeah, these people, they don't actually contribute at all. All they do is suck up energy and resources. Now, and if you can do that analysis around profitability, and let's face it, most companies cannot do that analysis. They don't know which clients are profitable and which ones are not. But if you can get to that level, you'll probably find that about 20% of your customers are actually costing you money to serve. By the time you've factored in all of the resources involved in winning the deal, delivering the deal, customer service, handling complaints and moans and things like that, they're actually costing you money. So there's a great quote out there: the easiest way to make more money is to stop losing money. If you can get rid of that 10 to 20% of customers who are costing you money, then all of a sudden, sure, your revenue will dip for a while, but you'll free up all this resource, all this energy that you can then direct to the customers that really love what you do, your core customers.
Plus, chances are that your P&L is going to go up right there and then, right? Because again, you are eliminating activities that cost you money, that is not actually bringing any profit. I think that I was really tempted to interrupt you at a second, but then you kind of corrected yourself at one point. Oh crap. You were talking about the core customer as a company or person, but really we are thinking about a person, right? It's really, really important. People do business with people, not with companies. People are the ones who are making the decision. So you're looking at, when defining a core customer, really who they are, what type of company they work for, and in what role is part of their description. But really the key is to think about a person and what is it in it for them, right? What is it? What is it? What is the pain? What is the need that you are responding to, and why they love you?
Have you had pushback against that? As in, no, well, we've got to think about the company, not the individual. I get that all the time.
I just wanted to say that I don't think that I've ever walked into a boardroom where this wouldn't be the opening gambit. Takes a while to come around that idea. The same way it takes a while to go around that idea that some customers we just shouldn't have. On the other hand, I was just very, very pleasantly surprised by a company that I work with, where there were some changes to leadership, but they literally said, only about, and they use the ideal customer profile terminology, which is close, but not identical. But they're basically saying, only about 40% of our customers are actually our ICPs. So, in probably a year or two, we won't have the other ones.
Yeah.
Right. And just facing that it's just not worth the effort keeping them, that if you put all the mights of the company behind that one core customer or that one profile, the people you can do the best job for and who are going to buy from you at the highest profit, that multiplication effect, that leverage is massive, right?
Yeah. But you also need to be able to understand who fits in that profile. I mean, the way I characterize a core customer is someone who is prepared to pay your premium because you're not going to be the cheapest person out there. They buy from you again and again. They come back, they buy more, it's a subscription which they're happy to pay, or they refer you to others, as in they'll speak to other people that they're in business with and said, you've got to work with these guys. They're awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is you love working with them. You love working with them, and they love working with you. So if you can identify who in your client portfolio meets those criteria, then you're a fair way to identifying the characteristics of your core customer. So then it's just a question of going to find others. There's a great story about a pet food company in the US, and this is going back a while, probably 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago. And they'd niched. They'd made a decision to niche right down. So they didn't just make pet food, they made dog food. But they didn't just make dog food, they made dog food for owners who like to run. But not just that, they like to run with their dogs. So this dog food was formulated to give the dogs the energy and the nutrition and all the vitamins and everything else so that they would be able to run with their owners. Because they were niche and because they had such a clear identity of their core customer, they knew exactly where to find them. They'd set up stands in parks and hand out free samples of their dog food to people who were running with their dogs. Genius. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, that is brilliant. So in your practice, Jed, how do you go about helping your clients? Because I think that, at this point, the listener will be, okay, great. So how do I find out who is my core customer and how to go about it?
Yeah. So the way I do it is it's a several step process. So, and I get some really funny looks going through this process because we are really, really challenging some deep held business beliefs that people don't really want to let go. So the first thing I do is I say, okay, think about a customer that you love working with and shout out the name. Now, and they'll shout out, Ray's Hardware. I love working with them. So, okay, so it's not actually Ray's Hardware, it's Ray that you love working with. Is that right? Oh, no, Ray is the original founder. He's passed away now, so it's now just a brand. The person we actually love working with is called Bob. Okay. So Bob is a core customer. You love working with him, comes back and he buys from you again and he refers you to others. Yeah, all those things. Okay, so I then take that person and then we're trying to identify the psychographics, not just the demographics, the psychographics of Bob. Is he 40s to 50s? Does he love fast cars? Does he like riding with horses? What defines him as an individual, a person, an individual? And then I ask the question of the team that I'm working with. What are the three things that Bob wants from you? Now, what are the three key things that Bob is looking to get from you? Then the question I'm asking is, how do you meet those three needs? And if you can't meet those three primary needs, then you've probably got something to work on your product or your service. But if you get to that point, you know who your core customer is by name. You can describe him psychographically and demographically. You know the three key things that they want from what you do for them. And you also know how you meet the needs of those three things. Now, the next step is about understanding the profitability for different customers. So I'll ask the question, okay, how profitable are they? What's the revenue from people like Bob? And what's the profitability in percentage and in dollars? So that if we have more than one core customer type, and to begin with, we often do, we want to get down to one, but we'll often start with two or three, then we can make a call about where we actually want to focus. Now, and if one is more profitable, generates more dollar profit than the other, or the third, then we're probably going to turn the third off because it's just not worth spending the effort.
That was my question. So how often, because it happens to me all the time, you run into a situation where people say, hey, but we have several core customers, right? And they start listing them and do, who knows what, right?
So we often have the view that we have more than one core customer. And I don't push too hard on that to begin with because, if they think they've got three core customers, okay, let's work through the process. And once they can see how they can earn more money by doing less work, by focusing on their core customer, it gradually sinks in. Now, it might take a couple of months, it might take 6 months, but they normally get there. And I do have some customers, some clients who genuinely have more than one core customer. Now, I have a company. They work in the scaffolding space and they sell scaffolding, but they also provide scaffolding services. And the people who buy from them for those two different services are actually quite different. So it's but they're actually close enough because they're in the same industry. But so that they are different, and
You
they've
can
made it
you
work for them.
you can argue that they are two different business models, which they are,
Yeah,
and then
they,
you
they
have
are.
a different core customer for a different business model, right? I think that that is important. The other piece that I run into quite often is the distinction between the customer and the user, and then understanding the distribution chain, like who is really your customer. So, for example, if you're in the grocery business and you make chips, right? The ultimate customer is the consumer, and you need to market to them. But your customer, the person who makes the decisions to put you on shelves, the person who writes you the check, is the distributor,
Yeah,
right? So who do you treat in the chain is and how is really really important. You need to understand who has what role in sort of your stakeholder map of your overall offering, and that depends on the business model, of course.
yeah. And in that example, it is the person who gives you money that is the core customer, and that's the criteria I use to actually define who the core customer is. Yes, you might have users. Yes, you might have end customers, but it's the person who gives you money. That's the customer.
It's interesting in software space, for example, because very often there is somebody doing the implementation or the integration that represents you or making the actual choice to recommend your product to their customer, right? And understanding how your service is benefiting your customer's customer is really important in that space.
Yep, yep. Have, Milan, do you have any stories of companies or clients who got it, even if it took them a while, and then they doubled down on their core customer to great effect? I mean, I certainly do. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah. Well, I saw a company double their revenue and triple their profit, but going from 20 customers to five. Right. Just literally saying, okay, now this is what we want, this is what we don't want, this is what works. Let's double down on that. Let's find two more of those. Let's get rid of the 17 that don't fit that, and let's get really good at serving this group, and it works like magic. It's ridiculous, right?
And I've seen particularly the customer service functions light up and get re-energized when you get rid of non-core customers. And when you get rid of non-core customers that cause all the hassle, they're the ones that complain, they're the ones that suck up customer support or customer service time. And once you've got rid of them, the whole function just lights up because they're now just working with customers they really, really want to work.
You're using very strong language, and I am with you on that. Like getting rid of the non-core customers is what you're trying to do. I think that there is also the element of how, right? Because you need to worry about your reputation in the marketplace and all of those things. So very often it's about farming them out, finding the right vendor for them, even if it's your competition, because if you're doing your strategy right, you really don't have a competition, right? Because they're going after different customers than you are by definition. So you can take the customers that are not yours, that you don't want to do, and give them to somebody who can serve them better, right? Because that person working for this current company that might not be your core customer purely from the point of view of which company they work for and what is the value proposition the company requires might be your core customer once they move on to a different job somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And maintaining a good relationship with the people, because again, people do business with people, not with companies, is the key for the long term
Yeah.
success of whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, and most reasonable people will have a reasonable response to a reasonable conversation. So if you go to a non-core customer and say, well, look, this actually isn't working for us. We don't make any money from you. Now you suck up all of our customer service time.
You're not happy.
Yeah, you're not happy. Yeah, you're complaining all the time. So this is probably the right time to break up. This is probably the right time to break up. And as you said, Milan, maybe going to this company would be a better experience for you. So, no hard feelings. Enjoy working with a different company, and yeah, good luck. Good luck.
The company which went from 20 to 17 actually cut a deal and effectively sold their book of business to a company that was better suited to serve that type of customers with all the bells and whistles. Like they basically said, rather than trying to save these customers, our effort is better invested into offboarding them as gracefully as possible to make sure that they're happy because of the choice we made, right? And it actually all went from their change to core values, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had episode on core values, but that's what it is. Like they are a service organization, professional services, and they're like, we want to be partners with our customers. And as a partner, we have to have their benefits or their, happiness in mind as our priority. And this is not the right situation for them. Let's find them a better situation, even if it means that we are cutting ourselves out of the value chain.
So if you don't know your core customer, I strongly advise that you do some work to get really, really super clear on who your core customer is. So who they are specifically as individuals and their characteristics and what they want from a service or a product that you provide and how you meet those needs and which ones are the most profitable. And once you're clear on that, you can then start to clean up your client portfolio so that you end up working just with core customers. It cuts across a lot of the deeply held business beliefs around how you make money and how you get money. But believe me, when you get there, it changes how you do business. It changes the dynamics of how the functions work together within the business.